Imagine waking up in a world where nobody knows a single word. No names, no questions, no stories, no songs, no laughter shared through conversation, only silence, broken by the sounds of nature, the wind blowing across the grasslands, birds calling from distant trees, the roar of predators hidden in the darkness. Now imagine trying to survive in that world. You spot a dangerous lion hiding in the tall grass. How do you warn your family? You discover a river full of fresh water. How do you tell your tribe where it is? You invent a clever way to hunt together. How do you teach the next generation? Today, these questions seem almost impossible to imagine, because every second of our lives depends on language. Every friendship, every family, every civilization, every idea, every invention, everything began with words. But here's the mystery. Nobody knows who spoke the very first word. There were no books, no recordings, no witnesses, only clues left behind over hundreds of thousands of years. So, how did humans invent language, and why did it become the greatest tool our species has ever created? This is the incredible story of one invention that changed humanity forever. For millions of years, our ancestors survived without language. They hunted together, they gathered food, they raised children. At first, gestures were enough. A point, a wave, a warning. But as human groups became larger, life became more complicated. Imagine planning a mammoth hunt. One hunter waits behind the rocks, another circles through the grass, a third blocks the escape route. How do you explain that plan? Without words? Or imagine trying to teach a child. Which berries are safe? Which snakes are deadly? Which plants can heal? Gestures can show objects, but they struggle to explain ideas. The past, the future, or imagination. As our ancestors became smarter, their thoughts became more complex. Eventually, the old system was no longer enough. Humanity needed something more powerful. Eventually, something extraordinary began to happen. Instead of relying only on gestures, our ancestors started making meaningful sounds. Perhaps a short call meant, "Come here." Another sound meant, "Danger." Another meant, "Food." Nobody sat down and invented a dictionary. Language didn't appear overnight. It evolved, one sound at a time, one generation at a time. Children copied adults, adults taught children over thousands of years. Those simple sounds slowly became words, and those words changed everything. Scientists have wondered about this mystery for centuries. Unfortunately, language leaves no fossils. We can't dig up the first word or discover the world's oldest conversation. Instead, scientists study bones, ancient tools, modern languages, and even our DNA. Over the years, several fascinating theories have appeared. One idea is called the bow-wow theory. It suggests that the first words came from copying nature. Birds singing, wolves howling, water flowing, thunder roaring. Perhaps our ancestors copied these sounds until they slowly became words. It's a clever idea, but it probably isn't the whole story. Another popular idea is called the gesture theory. Perhaps language began with our hands, long before it reached our mouths. Even today, we naturally point, wave, smile, and communicate without speaking. Some scientists believe words slowly replace gestures, instead of appearing from nothing. Then there's the poo-poo theory. It suggests language began with emotional sounds, a cry of pain, a shout of surprise, a laugh of joy, over countless generations. Those emotional sounds may have become meaningful words. Interesting, but again, probably only part of the answer. Another theory has a rather unusual name, the yo-he-ho theory. Imagine a group of people trying to move a giant log or lifting enormous stones. Working together is easier when everyone moves at the same rhythm. Perhaps our ancestors shouted together, "Yo! He! Ho!" Those rhythmic sounds that may have slowly become language. Once again, it's an interesting idea, but language is probably far more complicated than any single theory can explain. Instead, most scientists believe language evolved gradually. from many different abilities working together. And that makes the mystery even more fascinating. So what actually changed? Why can humans have conversations while chimpanzees cannot? The answer isn't just intelligence. Chimpanzees are remarkably smart. They use tools, solve problems, recognize themselves in mirrors, but they cannot build a language like ours. One important clue may lie inside our DNA. Scientists discovered a gene called FOXP2. It plays a major role in controlling the precise movements needed for speech. But genes alone aren't enough. The human brain also evolved in extraordinary ways, and together, they helped unlock the greatest communication system our species has ever known. Inside your brain, special regions work together every time you speak. One area helps produce words, another helps you understand them. Without these systems, language would completely fall apart. But our ancestors didn't wake up one morning with a perfect brain. Evolution slowly improved these abilities. Across hundreds of thousands of years, every generation inherited tiny improvements. Until one day, humans could tell stories, share knowledge, and imagine the future. Language was no longer just survival. It became imagination itself. And from that moment, human history would never be the same. Once humans could share ideas, everything changed. Knowledge no longer died with one person. Parents taught children. Children taught their own children. Generation after generation. Knowledge continued to grow. People no longer had to rediscover everything from the beginning. Instead, every generation started where the previous one had finished. Language made cooperation possible on an entirely new scale. Families became villages. Villages became cities. Cities became civilizations. Without language, there would be no science, no history, no books, no laws, no internet. Every great invention in human history began with someone sharing an idea. Language became humanity's greatest invention because it made every other invention possible. Today, speaking feels completely natural. We learn language before we can even remember our childhood. Most of us never stop to ask, where did it all begin? There was never a single inventor, no magical moment, no first dictionary. Instead, language slowly evolved across hundreds of thousands of years, built by countless generations, who added one tiny piece at a time. Every conversation you have today is connected to those ancient voices. Every joke, every song, every promise, every story, every scientific discovery, every great civilization, every line of code, every book ever written, exists because humans learned to share ideas. Perhaps the greatest invention wasn't the wheel, or fire, or the computer. Perhaps the greatest invention was the ability to place a thought inside another person's mind, using nothing more than sound. And maybe, thousands of years from now, our descendants will still be using the very same invention. That began with one simple voice, echoing across the prehistoric world.